Good evening, you guys. I just wanted to make a video because it relates to me. It's a trending topic. Um I guess it would be about Dr. Umar and his daughter. And that story kind of triggered me because I had a similar story with my biological father. And the first time I met my father, I was 5. And him and his wife um traveled to where I was staying with my mom. I have 2 younger brothers. And I'll never forget, my dad wore a suit, his wife wore a business suit. Um she took notes the whole time. And after they spoke with me and my mom, I never forget, they took me to Kmart. I don't know if I'm from South Florida. I know most of the Kmart stores are now closed, but back then, this was like 1980 because I was 5 and I was born in 75. So Kmart was like the Walmart of those times. And they bought me a few things, and I didn't see him again for like 10 years. The next time I seen my father, I was 15. And I believe I talked about this on one of my other videos. But when I was 15, they came and they let me spend a couple of weeks with them for the summer. He lives in Orlando. Well, I haven't talked to them in years, so I don't know if they're still in Orlando or not, but that's where he resided as long as I've known him. But so I spent a couple of weeks with him, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, he basically told me that I was not his child and that my mom was sleeping with him and his best friend. So basically, they just let me spend a couple of weeks, just, I guess, like charity. I don't know what was the reasoning, but when I got back home, I told my mom. So my mom, she didn't have money at the time for a paternity test on her own, so she filed for child support. Um, by the time it came for the blood test, I was 16. I never forget it. And I felt so embarrassed because I was 16, 2 years from being an adult. Here I'm in here with all these little babies and toddlers giving blood. But my mom did it because she know that it would determine my paternity, to prove to my biological father that I was his child. And of course, I was his child, 99.9. But it didn't too much change anything. Um, from what I know, because my father was district manager for Federal Express, but he moved his finances around. So he was only court ordered to pay $214. My mom didn't ask for back pay, so he paid $214 from the time I was 16, not even exact 2 years, because I was already 16, by the time they had made the order, and he paid until I was 18, $214. But like I said, even after, when I seen him was 15, I didn't see him again until I believe I was 19. Him and his wife, they did come to my graduation, and it's pretty much, that was pretty much like the basis of our relationship. It was very much in and out my life. But so often I would reach out because I just had it in my mind being young and not really close to my family or anything. And me and my mother never really got along because she just felt like I was the beginning of her struggles. And then I reminded her of my biological father. So she used that as the excuse to abuse me for many years. And but I moved from South Florida to Tallahassee. I I reconnected with my father, and they paid for me to come live in Orlando for um I lived in Orlando 4.5 years, and it was very much not what I expected. At the end of the day, I believe they had ulterior motives of why to bringing me to Orlando. That was one of the places I realized that I was a targeted individual. I in my heart, in my spirit, I believe they had something to do with it. But at the end, during my divorce, I reached out to my father because in my heart, I believe, he's been a man of God, and I wanted to believe so much that he had somewhat of love for me, but it was not true. And I remember all the moments I had, even when I was in Tallahassee, I lost my kids for about 6 months. When to go into that story, well, that's for another video. But I reached out to them to see if they could get my kids, and basically, it was a no. They didn't help me get a lawyer. Matter of fact, once I called him and told him what happened, I didn't hear from them anymore until after the case was done, and it was like a year. It took me 6 months to get my kids back, and a year before the case was completely, over. I had to fight it in court, and they never called me and asked me how was I doing, do I need help getting a lawyer. It was like little things, little signs. Even like when I was 19, my senior year, that summer after my senior year, I was raped coming from a movie. And I reached out. Well, I reached out to my dad's mother. Me and her was close. And he never reached out to me doing them. It was just like a string of events that I was young and just wanted to believe they cared. But when I look back on it, it was so many red flags when it came to me and my biological father's relationship that it should have been like a trigger, a warning for me. But like I said, I was young. I didn't have anybody. I was just really a lost soul. And I thought if I could find my way out of the hood and uplift myself and do better, we would have a better relationship. And I looked over a lot of things that I should have just known, like, look, this man doesn't care about you. You need to let it go. But that's hard when it comes to one of your biological parents, the two people that are supposed to show you love and show you how to navigate this world, show you how to deal with people, turn out to be your enemy. So when I heard the story about Dr. Umar and his daughter, and his first response was to attack her. No paternal instinct, no empathy, no compassion, just attack mode. It it definitely was a trigger for me. Not only because I know how she feels, knowing that you have biological father that knows you exist but choose not to be in your life, and then for your father to feel like you need to chase them is crazy to me. But this is the story for millions of young melanated women all over the world, and some boys. Like men have become so selfish and self-centered, and a lot of melanated men feel like they are the most wanted men. So they go from woman to woman and they abandon their children. No compassion, no love. And I thought it would be different because my biological father has been a minister most of his life, in the church all of his life. But just because you go to church, just because you preach the word, that don't mean God in you. And a lot of men treat their children like ex-girlfriends. Like you gotta chase them to order to have a relationship. And I feel no child should have to chase a parent at all. That is one of the things that I don't hear ministers talk about. I don't hear a lot of ministers in church or of any religion preach about the immorality of how some men treat their own flesh and blood. I see how when you have no connection spiritually, emotionally to a child, that's easy to sacrifice them, neglect them, and I don't know. I know it was something that we went through during slavery, but so-called slavery, but some men just have took on that trait and really feel like they don't play a part in the destruction of our race and the downfall of our youth. There's no accountability. It's no will to change or do better. It's just mind-boggling. And Dr. Umar preaches about, not preaches, but he lectures about the treatment of minority people. Like it's crazy. The hypocrisy. And then to have two daughters that you don't have no connection with, and then you're not even working for a connection with, and then your first interaction when your daughter speaks out against the abandonment and the neglect is to try to shame her and embarrass her and attack her. He never even called her his child. During his response, he called her a smurf. And this is a man I followed for a long time. I even donated to when in the beginning when he was collecting money for his school. So I have been following Dr. Umar, whether I agreed with his teachings or not, but I was a supporter in the beginning. So just the hypocrisy, and it's like even with ministers today, a lot of ministers can't speak against none of this because they participate in it. And a lot of them are Masons, a lot of them are Boule, Divine Nine, but it's no accountability and responsibility in their lives. But they want to be leaders of the masses. But I pray for that young sister because it is going to affect her. It has affected every relationship I've ever had. That was one of the reasons I just stopped dating. I just stopped trying because I felt like in my past that I was attracting the same type of man as my father. I married a man like my father. no empathy, no compassion, emotionally unavailable, someone who thought that they was the prize and I needed to chase them. That's my story and a lot of other stories of other women. And if you're a woman listening to this, it's okay. Spend time loving yourself. It took me to in my 40s after after bad relationship to realize that I was running from myself and I never truly loved myself. And you need to spend that time loving yourself. I don't want to say you don't need a man, but you definitely don't need a man that is emotion. And I don't care if it's your father, your uncle, your brothers, any man that is is not emotionally there for you, or you have to chase, and is not a supportive person in your life. You need to let them go. It's only you only gonna just keep repeating the same thing until you learn how to love yourself. And that was the best thing my last relationship, the guy I last dated. That was one thing he told me. He was like, "I'm gonna love you until you learn how to love yourself." And his love was mistreatment. His love was just giving me the bare minimum, being abusive with his words, and threatened me with physical abuse. But guess what? I did. I learned to love myself. And every man on here, I don't care if you are not taking care of one of your child, whether they're in the house or not, you're going to be held accountable for that. You need to really do some soul searching and see what part you are playing in the downfall of our race, even the human race. You know, you cannot feel like you're a good person or you are a prize and you abandon your own flesh and blood. No, I get it. Like, it's some children that they're toxic. And I'm not saying that if you try and your child is disrespect, but a child telling you how they feel is not disrespect in my book. The last time I spoke to my father, I just told him how I felt from my heart. I never cursed him out. I never did anything. But the fact of me telling him my truth, he felt like it was disrespect and never talked to me again. I even asked his wife, I said, "Oh, so he's never going to talk to me again?" That has always been his way to hurt me. That is not somebody that loves their child. That is not a good person. That is a person of the devil and of wickedness. When you try to trigger your own flesh and blood and you watch them suffer for many and many of years. I remember I was a poor young girl living in the ghetto. We on welfare and housing. And when my father did come around, it was to boast about their trips, their cruises to Alaska, their family trips yearly. And just think of all the years he denied me. And it turned out I was his child. And to this day, I haven't heard from them since I told him my truth of how he made me feel all of my life. And this has been, what, 6, 7 years now? But I don't have any regrets because when I said I felt it in my spirit and I made peace with it. When I started reaching out, I knew I was never going to talk to him again. That was his sole purpose. And I just want to know, I don't care if you're a minister. I don't care what religion you in. I don't care how much money you have. Just know you are hellbound if you are mistreating your children for your own selfish ways, your own pride, because that's all it is. Pride and ego. And one day, whether it's been in this life or the next, you're going to take accountability and you're going to suffer for whatever pain you cause people. And I just want to end that video off like this. You guys be blessed and have a wonderful evening.